if a priest can refuse absolution to a penitent based on the penance contritus, probably the contrition of the penitent, how does the priest make that determination? Yeah, so in contrition, you have to have both sorrow for the sins and then also a desire to not commit them again, a firm purpose of amendment. And so the sorrow for the sins is definitely a harder one to pin down. If a penitent doesn't have sorrow for his sins, like the only times usually that you would be able to really determine that is if someone comes in and says, look, there's nothing wrong with this, but I know I'm supposed to confess it. Then, that's kind of when you have to say, well, no, there is something wrong with it, and that's why you have to confess it. And so, you try and work with the penitent there in the confessional and explain to them why this is an evil thing, and get them to accept that. And the contrition, or the recognition, the sorrow for the sins, doesn't need to be an emotional one, so they don't need to feel sorry. It can simply be a knowledge and a recognition of the truth that this offends against God. This damages my relationship with God. And that is sufficient for that sorrow for sins, the recognition. Obviously, you have to recognize that it offends against God, and then the sorrow actually comes in with I do not desire to offend against God. And so even if a person is still very attracted to that sin and still in a certain sense on an emotional level wants to do that sin, that does not mean that they don't have contrition. They just have to recognize this is a sin that offends against God, and I do not want to offend against God. The second part of contrition is that desire for amendment. And so the desire for amendment is the one that usually is most clear, and if a priest has to refuse absolution, it's because there is not a desire for amendment. And so sometimes somebody will say something along the lines of no, I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna change it. I'm just gonna keep doing that. But I wanted to go to confession because I'm going to mass, and I wanted to be able to receive communion. And it's well, if you don't want to change, then you're not really sorry, right? And so the priest has to tell them, no, I'm sorry, I can't give you absolution. Some of the more concrete ones that you'll see, if someone is in an illicit relationship, so for example, if somebody's in a relationship with somebody else who's already married, or if somebody is married and they have another relationship on the side, or if two people who are not married are living together as a married couple, or if somebody has taken on a job that is in and of itself sinful, so a prostitute, abortionist, things of that sort, drug dealer, things of those sorts. Those would be, if they aren't willing to at least take steps to get themselves out of that profession, then that would definitely be a reason to refuse absolution. And then there can occasionally be situations in which a person is caught up in a habitual sin, and it's very clear that they could take some simple, concrete steps to get themselves out of it. One of the examples is with an alcoholic. You ask them, okay, well, do you have any alcohol in your house? Yes. Can you get rid of the alcohol in your house? Yes. Will you do that? No. It's kind of well, I'm sorry, that's not contrition. We all know that for an alcoholic, you just need to remove yourself from that occasion of sin. A similar thing will happen with sins of the flesh, with masturbation, pornography type things, where it's okay, look, there are these very simple ways to kind of put up barriers, especially in regard to accessing impure images. And if you're not even willing to start taking these steps to keep yourself from doing that, and you're continuing to fall into this in a very regular pattern, then there's not contrition. And so I can't give you absolution. Because this is, you clearly need this barrier set up. Those are the normal times or ways that you can determine that the priest actually cannot give absolution.